You're obviously attracting a lot of attention these days with your NASA channel.
Yeah, NASA took out NASA television on the internet. So.
And we'd like to know a bit more about you. What's your background? What made you a sudden specialist with the shape of the Earth?
Well, if I tell you it's a certain thing, and without having an instrument to prove it for over 1,000 years, let's say 500, I'll be generous, and there's no instrument or exploration of the surface, but you tell everybody it's that, if you're wrong, are you going to tell everybody?
Good question.
There's a lot riding here. Everybody who's got a degree in physics, the credibility of every university institution over the past 500 years, the concept of Darwinism, evolution, where we're from. If they lie about the shape, everything falls apart. Even the notion of scarcity, especially if there's more real estate, more land, more resources, more oil.
And what about you? Where do you come from?
Your imagination.
Meaning, what's your background, your studies, what?
Self-taught, high realist painter. Started painting at the age of 3. So before my brain was gotten a hold of by curriculums in schools, I was already well on my way in understanding perspective on the horizon line. Like how to draw perspective, three-dimensional reality form. My goal at a very young age was to be able to reproduce paintings that looked like reality, like a camera took it. It's just this weird fetish I've always had since I was very young. When you would look at an image, I would have a photo right next to the image, and I really get off on confusing people whether they could just and I'd say, which one's the photo? And I would get off. It's been this freaky fetish I've always had to watch people's eyes sort of scramble. And it would come up closer, and I'd be, no, 6 feet. You have to decide from 6 feet. In this case, when it comes to a picture of the Earth from space, not only will no one ever go up in a rocket to check out if it does look like that, but it's more than the distance of 6 feet.
So you were hired by NASA not because of your knowledge in astronomy, just because of your talent at painting?
They enjoyed the way I painted things to make things look real, like my understanding of light. How I could take something that doesn't exist in reality. After a certain point, I surpassed needing photos, and I could basically construct things that don't exist, understanding how light would hit form. And they recruited me after a vernissage, after I graduated from political science intelligence at a Jesuit school in Canada, known as St. Francis Xavier. They recruited me at a university exhibition.
And what was your job like?
Well, in the beginning it was like, we'd like to see some samples of textures and stuff like that, and they started really pushing me into using, different types of spill effects and stuff like that. They already had an idea, like they seem to already have this system of textures or ways to make textures. So they asked me to, I guess I was just filling in on somebody else's work, like a predecessor who went into retirement. And once in a while I would get calls from a gentleman who was the head of the graphics department, and he'd ask me to change the color on things or the lighting. And then what they would do is they would send me like a drawing or an architectural drawing of like an instrument that might be scouting the surface of a celestial body, be it a moon or a planet. And then they would ask me to transpose these objects on the textures, and they would give me certain directions of like the light is at this angle, this time of the day, at this intensity, and then I would have to make the shadows congruous to the information they would make, and I'd have to make it look real.
And can you explain to us what happened between your steady job that you just described and...
It wasn't steady. It was on and off, and it was freelance.
Okay. And what happened between that period and now? What is the turning point that made you totally dissociate yourself from what you were working for?
Was about a year after I met some of the people I was working with over the phone and on computer at a function, and I think it was kind of like somewhat of an initiation to this division of NASA. And there was one gentleman there that didn't work for NASA, but he was like a consultant for the U.S. Defense Department, GPS, and NASA. And he was a physicist and a painter. Very interesting combination. He was a well-known astrophysicist and a photorealist painter. Most people in the mainstream know him as a well, not even the mainstream, but in the physics circles, know of him as a scientist, but they didn't know he had this knack of photorealistic painting. And it's something they kind of kept under wraps. With me, however, I was, a very good photorealist painter. I would say I was better than him, and I was better at recreating textures that don't exist. And there was a party at somebody's cottage in the Hamptons, and the power went out, and it was about 1 o'clock in the evening, and there was one gentleman who was friends with this guy. He was this consultant for the U.S. Defense Department. Now, this guy was basically a friend of one of my superiors and a colleague. And basically, they started to, I think the conversation started turning around like something was about GPS coordinates weren't working or something concerning Antarctica. And so then he made a crack. This gentleman was working for them both as a consultant. So it was like, I was like, well, so you should go out there and, just and check this thing out, see if it's still functional. And then somebody made a quip to the effect that, well, if he goes out that far, he ain't coming back. And I asked, like, well, what do you mean, like, well, why wouldn't he come back if he can go back on his, because GPS doesn't reach that far. And then I was like, well, why doesn't GPS reach that far? I mean, is it too cold? And it's like, it's because it's flat. And they started laughing. They all started laughing. And my superior had quite a weird smirk on his face. He was watching me to see how I would take all this. And there was no lights on, and they had candles that they just lit. And then basically he took out some chalk, and it was like a cement sort of plank floor of some sort. And he started drawing out the Earth, all the continents exactly, but how they function, everything, physics, science, how everything we understand in movement of energy and objects in this new or hidden science, hidden from the public, how everything is caused by temperature, as opposed to like this very evasive notion of energy with Einstein and Hawking, that there's 3 ingredients to make a universe: energy, mass, and and space. It was temperature. Temperature was why there's mass and energy.
And you believed him right away?
It made a lot of sense, but he basically started to avert everything. And they were kind of laughing, but they were they were listening to him. He seemed to be like kind of like this guy who was just this weird. I thought he was some sort of nut that these guys. Like he's basically just like picking apart everything that they know or that they say every day in the office. He was basically explaining the flat Earth and how it works, and he literally drew the UN flag. And I thought this is a joke on me. This is some sort of initiation to see if I'm stupid or to see if I'm going to buy this. I thought they were fucking playing with me to see if they could convince me it was flat. And what was creepy about the whole thing is that they were more laughing at me for not getting it. It never went back to it being a ball with these gentlemen that night. It might have been that at the office the next day, in front of everybody else, the underlings, but, and then for weeks, I couldn't think everywhere I went, every time I saw the picture of the Earth, it was like just a logo. It was a painting. It was a graphic. And then I started to scrutinize the actual images of the Earth they claim are photos. And it just started looking silly, like a cartoon. Like, why is the water so blue if it's reflecting the blue atmosphere, but I could still see the brownness of Africa? Like, wouldn't I be seeing Africa through the blue atmosphere? Like, why is the green and the brown of continents so clear with the blue of the water when the water of the oceans is just reflecting the blue atmosphere? And how come the whole thing, being 3 parts water, isn't reflecting the blackness of space? Like, I started seeing all these flaws. And the more and more I tried to prove this guy wrong, or just to find out if they were joking or pulling my leg, the more I realized they weren't joking.
What do you think you were the one that they spoke about? That they told that to?
I think there was some projects coming up down the pipeline. Mars, a few things that they wanted to know. I think the whole thing was to see how I would play ball. Like, let him in on it. He'll ask more questions, and we'll study his reaction. And if he has the proper reaction to maybe be part of the deception, we'll let him in on the next project, the next contracts that we want him to falsify, the next images we need him to counterfeit.
How many people were told the same information in the
These
company?
guys were all privy to it, but these guys were all high-placed people at NASA and the U.S. Defense Department.
Any other colleagues of your level that were aware also?
No. Everybody at my level was doing graphics, doing prototypes, and just they would never believe. And what am I going to do? I'm going to tell them? Well, then they're going to tell them. So I was really alone in this situation. And I did more and more research, and then every time I came up to where to prove an equation, it was supported by an event that was created through mass media caused by NASA. Be it the moon landing, be it this, and then it was the moon rocks, and then Van Brouwer going to Antarctica to pick up rocks like 2 years before the first moon mission. Then the rocks just looked like, and then it came out a couple of years ago that John Glenn, when he went on this world tour to sort of like do a PR campaign, hey, we went to the moon, and he gave rocks to the Queen of England, and she gave those rocks to the museum in Amsterdam, and up until a couple of years ago, they found out that was just petrified wood. It wasn't a rock from the moon at all. So I mean, like, everything's starting to come out now, but it's said once in the newspaper, almost like it's a revelation of the method, a he on everybody. But
and how did you deal with having the information in your head and continuing to work on the projects you were hired for?
Well, after a while, extensions changed, numbers were dead, and I was not acknowledged. I didn't get through. I mean, even people I worked with, the agency said that they never even worked for them. So the whole thing looks like it's just like, so I look crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, like, the guys I work with, when I call back, you know, didn't, like, the agency saying they never worked for them, which I pretty much imagine is what they're saying right now, or what they were going to say about me was the same thing. I mean, go ahead, call them up, ask if Matt Boylan, the comedian, ever drew paintings. I always wanted to, like, go up in space and be an astronaut, like any kid, like any boy, and you know, like, meet alien life from another planet. Maybe I still will. Maybe, you know, like, maybe planets exist the way we do, and it's flat and infinitely expanding, caused by temperatures meeting, like cold and hot, or heat from underneath, and then forming this ice belt. And then there's geothermal pockets across it, you know, with little celestial lights that roam around these magnetic north poles. And then there's people living on these disks or these planets, whatever, whatnot. But for me to not create an exchange with another human being in my lifetime while I watch this deception continue and everybody invisibly worship a painting like some sort of religious icon. Because that's what it is. No one's ever going to see it at that distance, and yet it's taken for granted. That's it. Yeah, that's the Earth. But they're never going to go to the North and South Pole. Well, the South Pole is really how this conspiracy works, because it's really 360 degrees around our continents, which huddle around the North Pole.
We know that you're very vocal these days about this
I also
topic,
became
but
very vocal to protect myself.
when is the first time you actually spoke about it
Live?
to another person? It was live?
No. No. Well, at first I had a girlfriend. We're no longer together. She worked for the government, and she was actually there. She was at the party when the power went out, and then this conversation happened. And so, if she wasn't there, and then I came home and told her this, she would have thought I was nuts. But because there was some very influential, highly placed government officials working internationally, I had someone to exchange with on this concept. Our relationship collapsed. It didn't work for other reasons, but the exchange of like the fascination, the discovering, it was literally like discovering a whole new planet, and the romance of Columbus and how things really work, energy, science, temperature, how much land is there. Like, is everybody just following GPS corridors in the oceans and in the air? Yes. Do all the commercial flights hub through the northern hemisphere? Yes. And finding out how they plug all these holes so no one will find out. I bounced it through a few people who had very high praise in my talent, and I had to explain to them very, very precariously, because I didn't want them to know I was actually doing graphics for them. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody that I was actually working for them doing freelance graphics, because it's perjury. It's basically I'm putting my neck out, and I'm also apparently putting the national security of the country or the nation or the agency at risk by talking about the projects I was on. I was just making paintings of outer space.
Some people tend to believe that you're talking this way, you're proposing such a thing just to attract the attention.
Big time. The more people that hear me say this, the more time I'm buying for myself.
So you don't mean it, you just want to attract the attention? Is this what you're saying?
I'm trying to live, protect myself, and also...
what do you need to protect yourself?
I think the more people know this, the better off they'll be, humanity will be. Look, it's been 500 years. People go, wow, you're telling me to go, not only go back 500 years when we used to think it was flat. Actually, it was way before that. And I mean, everybody's in a dream. Their reality is from the military. This cannot continue. The militaries of this world are what is dividing and conquering everybody in these little eugenics events they call world wars. And basically, instead of rounding up people and then firing them because they're stupid and there's too many of them and they're eating everything, why don't you just let them know there's more land?
Do you think you're reacting right now the way they planned you would react?
No.
How do you think they were
hoping I would react?
Yes.
Well, I think that they were hoping that I would laugh and be part of the group, the illuminated, and all right, so let's have a good slap on the back, and let's see how far we can take this lie and keep it from them. While we
how far do you think they would have sent you in the other direction if you would have
I don't
just
know what
left?
they were planning. They could have used me to, I don't know, maybe stage a false alien invasion, mixing fantasy visuals with Android technology or nanotechnology. There's fusion going on too with smoke and mirrors. It's not just illusion with images, and there's actual technology going on here. So when you're fusing the two together, holographs in the sky, hologramic events.
You were talking earlier about the need to protect yourself. Why would you need to protect yourself now that you have
I went vocal because I decided to keep this within the council of people that I could trust, and then basically get my argument and take stock of everything that just happened. And once I knew how I was going to, what was really going on, what happened to me, what they were planning, and what has been done for the past 500 years, then it was about sharing counsel with very, very smart individuals close to me and developing a way to release this worldwide.
Through comedy, for example.
Pretty much.
How could we take you seriously since you're a stand-up comic now?
Well, I think the key here is you don't take me seriously. It's just a show, and we're in a free society. So I should be allowed to say whatever I want.
So where do you stand, would be my next question. Do you think it's funny? Do you want to play with people's mind? Or you do believe it?
It is extremely funny. On many levels.
Such as?
Pick the one you want. Well, it's funny for them because they're laughing at everybody. It's funny for me because I get to laugh at them failing at fooling the world. And I'm letting them in on it. It's funny for me to know and anticipate how the Star Trek, NASA-phile, Einsteinian, astronaut nerds are going to react to me proposing this. And then already knowing their comments, their stupid insults, their fanatic reactions when they can't handle what I'm saying. So it's funny on that level. So it's like every day I wake up, I open up the NASA channel, I look at the comments, and I'm literally battling zombies that are coming at me.
What is the worst comment we've ever made? Any insults or threats?
Well, I find that now there's always the generic get your tinfoil hat or put your tinfoil hat, and they all think they're original. I don't approve those comments. I do approve comments on it. I penned for approval because I just want debate. I don't want fanatics like Star Trek fanatics or heliocentric Einstein Newtonian freaks who just repeat what they were told in some school program, never went anywhere in a fucking rocket or at NASA, insulting me. So I keep the debate. And if you have a conventional response to what I'm saying, I will show you the other way.
Yes, and in the...
But when it comes to threats, I find that just completely freaky. And now, since I've been doing this, I've been taking this worldwide in front of audiences, now there's inadvertent sort of threats on my life being made. Like, you will die, accidents will happen.
How do you deal with this?
I deal with it like I'm dealing with a fanatic. Because a fanatic is someone who will have an irrational, highly negative, emotional, borderline violent reaction to just questioning their belief system.
And we have also other people we see on your channel that consider you a leader. They see you almost as a guru. How do you take this?
I'm no guru. I'm willing to be a leader. It's not a role that it's work.
What would be the general message, since you're a leader, according to the work you made already and the research you made?
I wait for the day where everybody will throw out that religious symbol called the globe. The globalists all stop
How do you see it as a religious symbol?
Well, when you have that kind of fanatic reaction to saying it's not that, and you actually stand your ground proving how it's clever events orchestrated by one group to support Newton, Copernicus, and the fact that we actually go around the sun, and don't go snooping around Antarctica unless you're a scientist approved by the Southern Treaty Project. You start to realize, what was your question?
I don't even remember. I was thinking about the other one. It was your message. Oh, no, how do you see it as a religious symbol?
Well, a religious symbol is you hand over your reality to a higher power or an authority to tell you the way it is in an area you'll never see. You'll never see it as a globe.
Do you just consider this topic being a topic, or it literally changed your lifestyle daily?
It changed everything in my wiring and my imagination.
How?
Things became bigger. Things became new. Things became mine to discover. Things became romantic, infinite, more complex, and more beautiful. But things became infinite. As infinite as that flat horizon my eyes see and have seen since I was a boy, a baby. And it goes as far as the blue, like the Mayans said. Like the Egyptians believed, like all those primitive ancients who built complex pyramids believed. Now NASA is doing a lot of, time offset the GPS receiver clock graphic, where it's this infrared sort of play with images from space. So they say they're doing embossment and infrared rendering, and so you can't actually, this is not the way the sun looks, this is the only way we could see the sun. So they do this sort of game. But it's just, it always makes me laugh when they show you an image of the brightest light in your world, in your existence, up close. Because I can't even stare at it. I mean, go put your eye right in the light bulb, like right into the light bulb. Actually now cameras film the sun. It's poppycock. It's completely ridiculous. You're not even seeing the sun. It's impossible that a camera will even catch that. Any kind of shadow recess on the sun's surface. If the sun is what they say the sun is.
Therefore, your background is more technical and artistic than scientific. Is this correct?
Well, realism is not only a school of thought in art. Realism is a school of thought of what is reality. What is, like when you're a scientist or somebody who's trying to come up with a hypothesis, usually you could cross-reference it with several other scientific experiments and several other scientific bodies and several other scientists. So you have a hypothesis, and then you do tests, and then you confirm them, and after 5 times it becomes somewhat of a fact, and then you build on to that. NASA, with the landing on the moon and with just most of the images they provide us, sure, there's the Russian equivalent, RASA, the European Space Agency, Japan's up there. They're all enemies down on the ground watching each other's, but up in space, they're all up in the space station. So things don't really work out. If you look at life as, with realism as to what's consistently logical, like when you see something in front of your eyes, like that tree is 30 feet from me, it's probably that high. And then you go and verify it. And then, you could get in an argument with someone else, and then you'll pull out the measuring tape, and then you might still have a carbon dating argument with another archaeologist as to how old these bones really are, because carbon dating is a whole other random school of measure, you know. And then you just get into time and space, and time is based off the death of a man over 2,000 years ago, which most of science, I mean, even declaring the age of the universe is juxtaposed to this measure of a man being nailed on a piece of wood. I mean, so when you really get down to it, science becomes a religion based on time. And time is a way of trying to order space. And it's funny because you'll never see anybody actually talk bad about the Pentagon, who work at the Pentagon, or at NASA. It's like we're supposed to believe that these are the only these organizations, everything's hunky-dory, and everybody just has a great work environment. There's no complaints. There's nothing weird going on there. People better wake up. When you work at NASA, you sign very, very strict confidentiality agreements when you're working in any department, especially the Pentagon. Your life is at risk. This is one of the reasons why, one of the reasons why when I was recruited, first as freelance to do texture graphics, nebulous texture graphics, almost like they would do these sort of texture samples that they could use in layer masking when creating. I didn't know this at the time, but I would send in these textures. They would be paint spills and different things, and sometimes they would ask for a realistic rendering of like a moonscape or what it would be like. They would say it's got, Europa is ice and and they would explain, the temperature and what they were looking at and the light intensity of where it would be juxtaposed to Jupiter with where the sun would be at a certain time of the year. And then my job was to realize this realistically, right? Much like Stanley Kubrick, took all of Newtonian physics and the way we view the universe in the 20th century before they even went up in a rocket and made it look real on screen. So, and a lot of people do this when they're like doing the renderings for like, new shuttles, new prototype equipment, what it would look like, how it would work. Everything in the world is drawn first. Money is drawn. The most important things that rule your mind are drawn. The dollar bill is drawn. The Queen of England on a pound. Flags. And in this case, we have an image everybody veneers and worships invisibly. Because it becomes worship when it becomes iconic and you've never seen it from that point of view. Like Christ or God. We've never seen the earth from the distance in outer space looking back at it that we so associate as Earth as a ball from that moon mission. And there are certain things that have come to my trained eye that are inconsistent with how the UV spectrum in our gaseous Earth's atmosphere creates a blue spectrum works when reflecting the blackness of outer space and seeing the clear brown and greenness of continents while seeing the clear blueness of oceans, and yet not seeing the contours of a continent through the bluish atmosphere that is our Earth's air. So these things don't make sense. Also, when they show 3D rotation, what they claim is satellite tracking footage of the Earth in rotation, time-lapse speed, sped up. The clouds aren't morphing and changing. If I were to film clouds from the Earth's point of view, looking up over the course of a day, rolling in and rolling out, or keep my camera trained on a cloud. I mean, keep your eye trained on a cloud while you lie down in a field. It will morph and change. But right now, the nature of clouds right now is at stake. And another reason for manufacturing and cloud seeding and modifying the weather is so that clouds stick around a lot longer in a linear straight line. But those aren't real clouds. Those are dropped out of the back of planes out in the suburbs when everybody's off at work in the city. and because they got to pay their mortgages. So they start in the suburbs around city centers or northwest. It depends also on other celestial entities in the sky that they might try to obscure with chemtrail phenomena. But clouds are changing. At what point are clouds being manufactured so they stick around and stay intact in their shape a lot longer so they can plug that hole in their fake equation is yet to be known.
They're missing track, and then there's a bit of a cloud, and then there's a regular one, and slowly they build up a layer, and then they just start spraying through the layer, because then you don't see them make their little trails. But they mix it up with real calm trails, get people confused with 2 or 3 jets doing crisscrossing, and then they do a little spurt, they let a little layout disperse, and then they come in and they build on that, just like a fucking spider. That's why they call themselves spider pilots. But the reason why is because they're trying to deceive you and your perception of a jet trail, when it's really now a substance they're dumping. And we saw the day today. I filmed it. It's on the same cassette. It's the same day when I went to the gym. The same day this started on. When I go out on the roof with the gas mask. It's the same day that was totally blue outside. Look at it. They have a fucking big budget of your money. Your fucking tax dollars are not going towards Medicare. They're not even going towards what you think it's going for in the military. It's all going to this, my friends. That's a lot of money to do this. Make the substance. Who's making the substance? Who's fucking making the substance? Maybe we should find out where the factory is. Have all the fucking little spider jets yet you want if they don't have the substance. So where are they making this stuff? How many people are in the factory making this stuff? Country. How's it getting through the borders? We gotta bottom out the pyramids. We gotta remove the bottom of all the pyramids. Everybody at the borders gotta go on strike. Terrorism is a hoax. Gotta get everybody in the military to go on strike. They care about their children. Freedom. Are they gonna get paid a salary to stop freedom? Well, then you're serving another master than I am, my friend. A jealous creature that wants to control man. Any wild child with a spirit. The light effect casting. Blotted out the fucking sun. It's not even any rain. Wake up, people! Look at it. It's a huge fucking system. Like what you would normally associate as an overcast storm. It's not! It's a fucking huge cloud of fucking poison. Look at the effect it's making. It's actually refracting the sun. Can you get this right here? Do you see this on the camera? Right in front of me? Something you see with your own eye. It looks like a rainbow effect. We saw the halo around the sun. That's a substance that's refracting.
Yeah, I see.
Glass-like, or it's metallic. Well, it's evil. It's not a regular cloud. I mean, look at all the thinness of it. It's tash. The leftover pockets of the combustion of the spurting engines of these nozzles that they have on these jets. Look at it. Those are like the little bursts now expanded by the wind pattern. It's not a fucking cloud. I mean, there's straight lines and little filaments and shit. Clouds don't make branches and filaments. I've never seen a branch cloud. Matter of fact, that's what a cloud is. It's the opposite of the branch. It's another geometry of nature. Now you got branch geometry. Like when you pour paint, it bleeds into paint. It's toxic looking. It's like a substance leaking into the atmosphere. It's like leaking and branching out. These idiots, this fucking beef jerky population of ground meat, and they actually think this is a cloud? Like they're fucking dumber than I ever thought. Fuck, man, I knew the stupidity ran wild, but man, at this depth of illiteracy, visual illiteracy, because I got them all fucking literate on symbols. See, they don't know how to look at anything in the three-dimensional world to compare or reference. They're not literate. They've actually been taken into a symbol cult of visual literacy.
Le tape va arrêter bientôt.
What?
Le tape va arrêter bientôt. Just don't start anything.
The sun's completely out. Get that.